Oh, hey Nick, how are you doing? So tonight, I guess I could say now, I will be discussing the history. Well, it's actually history, games, and the lifetime sales of both the Wii U. Actually, I should show the Wii U Gamepad, the Wii U, and it's also the North American anniversary of Nintendo GameCube. So I'm going to be discussing both systems in a bit. Yeah. I would do them as individual videos, but the problem is the way YouTube works. If I set up a stream on the same day, then if I did like a separate GameCube and Wii U stream, no matter which one I start, the stream will appear in both at the same time. So to just save myself a bit of stress, I'm basically going to be combining both and starting off with the GameCube. Since the chat is going, I think I'll go ahead and start. So, hello everybody, Blood Moon Bobby here. So, since today is the anniversary of both the INJPW girl, it's the North American anniversary of the Nintendo GameCube, and it's the 8th birthday of the Wii U. I decided to do my own console retrospective video on both of these systems. So I've taken some inspiration from both Tweeterman 287 and Adam Korlick, really amazing channels. And so I wanted to do my own perspective and go down memory lane with both of these systems. So it's not going to be, I don't want to do just a straightforward video saying something like, oh hey, the Nintendo GameCube is awesome and I played Pikmin, Animal Crossing, and Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like, the good amount of it will be much of that nostalgic discussion, but it's also going to be, I'm going to talk a bit of both about the challenges these two systems face. You might know that historically both the Wii U and GameCube, they weren't the worst selling Nintendo systems of all time, Virtual Boy, but they didn't quite sell as well as the really successful ones, like we think of the NES or even the Nintendo Switch or the original Wii. So I wanted to dive into a bit of discussion into the lifetime sales of both systems. So I'll start off with GameCube and then I'll get to the Wii U in a bit. It's kind of funny I'm making a jump from GameCube to Wii because in my mind, and historically the way the systems came out is GameCube, Wii, and Wii U, but the GameCube and Wii U came out on November or 18th of their respective years, 2001 and 2012, whereas the Wii came out November 19th, 2006. That stream is going to come tomorrow. So and JPW Girl says, you used to have an N64. I think I briefly played an N64. I've played N64 games through the Wii and Wii U's Virtual Console. I really like the original Super Smash Brothers. I like Super Mario 64. And my favorite N64 game is a Japanese rail shooter called Sin and Punishment. I think it's one of Nintendo's more underrated franchises. But N64 is fun. And yes, I agree, Nick. Adam Korlick and Tweeterman are awesome. Tweeterman especially, I think he was one of my inspirations for me to start my own YouTube channel. So, okay, so if I can remember. So we got the Nintendo GameCube here. Was released on November 18th, 2001. It was Nintendo's 6th generation fighter that competed with the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox. Unfortunately, by that point, the Sega Dreamcast was on its way out and Sega became a third-party company. So yeah, and I'll actually show you the system itself. I'll give you like a brief overview. It's going to be kind of tricky to show on camera, but this is my GameCube that I got. I don't remember the year. I think it must have been like 2001 or 2002 because I remember playing this system in kindergarten. So as good as I can show you, we have GameCube itself. As people say, it looks like a lunchbox because it's got the handle on top. So it's got the power button, eject button, the reset button, 4 controller port slots, nice to have, and the 2 memory card slots. Funny enough, I was such a dumb little kid. I didn't know that you could buy more memory cards in order to save your games, because the GameCube didn't have internal storage, so you gotta buy more memory cards. Kind of like the Switch today, I guess you can say. And on the bottom, it's got some ports for things like internet access and the ability to hook up the GameBoy Player, which was the way for the GameCube to play GBA games. So it's a nice compact system. It was released for around $200 when it first came out. I believe the launch colors were. I know the one you just saw, the indigo color, most people call it purple. I think it was one of the launch colors. I've heard some people say black was, but I don't know for sure. If you know, you could let me know in the chat. And GPW Girl says, remember Rayman? I didn't play Rayman as a kid, but I briefly played Rayman Origins, the demo version on 3DS, and I've also played Rayman on the original PlayStation using the PlayStation Classic. So yeah, it's a pretty decent game. And to have the controller itself, I would say the controller for the original GameCube is pretty good. I like how the shoulder buttons, they actually give like a little like slope for your fingers to rest. Kind of wish Nintendo would have gone down the route of the PS2 and sort of the Xbox and had dual bumper buttons. Instead, it's just L, R, and Z. Of course, in their later consoles, they would add a left bumper button, and the controller layout is really nice. With the in this case, the control sticks are not symmetrical; they're on different sides of the controller. The buttons feel nice. A, B, X, and Y, start button. I think the two parts of the controller I don't really like as much are the D-pad because it feels kind of small and mushy, and the C-stick is a little slippery to use, but it's pretty decent. So yeah, it's a nice controller. Nick asked, wait, you have a PlayStation Classic? Yes, in fact, hold on a second. Here it is. Yes, I got the PlayStation Classic when it was half off. I didn't really get into the retro console craze because I already have a good amount of NES and Super Nintendo games on my Wii and Wii U. I got the PlayStation Classic mainly because I didn't really get to play PS1 games as a kid because I was admittedly a big Nintendo fanboy. Nick said, also, a lot of people say the GameCube controller is the best controller ever. It's a decent controller. I know that some people like to use the GameCube controller to play certain games to this day, like some of the Smash games, and I think Nintendo brought GameCube compatibilities to Super Mario 3D All-Stars. It's a decent controller. If I were to rank a favorite, I guess I would say something like the PS4's DualShock 4 or the Nintendo Switch's Pro Controller. NGPW Girl said, I still have PlayStation 2, but it doesn't work anymore. Is it the Slim or the original version? NGPW Girl? I'm curious to know. So, yeah, so the GameCube was Nintendo's 6th generation system to compete with the PS2 and the Xbox, and I got a bunch of its notable titles. Hang on, I have to go get one more game. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is not my entire GameCube collection. This is just a part of it, but I wanted to talk about the most memorable games I've got. So. Nick said, I miss my PS2 Slim. PS2 system is a nice design system. I'm going to hold off on Animal Crossing because I want to talk about... Actually, before I get to games, I'll start off by talking a bit about like my history of the GameCube. So, as I alluded to earlier, it was my very first console. I think the story goes is I remember I would go to my cousin's house if they're watching this video, Hannah and Andrew, hello. Um, and they would play. They would love to play Nintendo games. They got into video games before I did, and I distinctly remember they would like to play Super Smash Brothers Melee, and that menu music from Melee, the da 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 da, that music like really stuck with me, and so I think what happened was my parents were like, let's get Bobby a game console. Well, Bobby and my sister Penny a game console, and they went with the GameCube. And technically the very first game they got for my GameCube was this NFL game, but I was never really interested in like football video games. So the first one they got for me was well, the first game I really played on GameCube was the original Pikmin. And yeah, funny story. The original GameCube box, it had like screenshots of all the really big games, and when I saw the one for Pikmin, I was like, I thought it honestly looked kind of creepy because it just had like a close-up shot of a ton of Pikmin, and I thought, oh, the way they talk was like me 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 me, which isn't quite like that. But anyway, so yeah, Pikmin, it's grown to basically become a classic strategy game. I mentioned this before in my Nintendo Remaster video. It's basically a game where you play as a captain character named Olimar, and you have these vegetable alien characters called Pikmin go around in order to find his rocket ship parts. And the challenge is that in the game, you have to square off against a whole bunch of enemies, like very insect inspired enemies, like the ladybug looking Bulborb, or this creature called the bread bug, and the beady long legs, and the armored cannon beetle. Well, and you have to fight many of them as obstacles, and some of them even have like swallowed the rocket ship parts, and you have to defeat them in order to get them to spit them out. It's a really challenging game. I really like how this game really it kind of actually makes you feel like you're in the Pikmin world, and that you feel like you're actually these really tiny characters, and it just makes the world seem really vast, large, and intimidating. And I really like a lot of the enemy character designs in Pikmin. I think they're some of the most creative Nintendo has come up with. If you want to look them up, go look them up. I find them to be really legitimately creepy, especially characters like the armored cannon beetle, beady long legs, and the swooping snitch bug. I really hate that last enemy because the swooping snitch bug, not only does it look really creepy, but it also it'll like kidnap your Pikmin and like take them a good distance away and throw them on the ground. But it's still a really fun game to play. I worked with my sister to finally beat it after nearly 20 years. God, jeez, the GameCube is nearly 20 years old. Next year it's gonna turn 20. Oh my God. Nick said they should port Pikmin 1 and 2 to Switch. And I agree. I think the game would look really nice on Switch. And GPW Girl said, I used to have PlayStation 1, but I don't know what happened to it. Hope you could find it one of these days. And GPW Girl. Funny story. My mom says she has, I think she said once that she has like my cousin's NES that he no longer uses, but we're not sure where it is. If I ever find that system, I'll be sure to make a video. So, yeah, I highly recommend the first Pikmin. It's a great game. And this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this history video live, is I also wanted to hear from you guys about what you think of the GameCube and Wii U and their games. If you have a favorite game that I didn't mention in this live stream, and just let me know in the live chat. I'm mainly going to be going over the games that I have a lot of personal experience with, because if I like talk about a game that I didn't really play as a kid, like the Mario Kart GameCube game, I don't want to just do the thing where it's like, here's Mario Kart for GameCube, I heard it's nice, and that's it. So, Pikmin 2, I have a really crazy story with this game. So yeah, Pikmin 2, the sequel. This time, instead of finding rocket ship parts, you're basically going around different worlds of different parts of the Pikmin world in order to find these treasures so you can get Captain Olimar's company out of debt. So this time you're playing as two characters. You switch between Olimar and his partner Louis, and later on in the game the president of the company comes along as that interchangeable character. So I have a lot of fun times with this game as well. I think they really made even better enemy character designs in Pikmin into with things like the Dewey Evils. They've added more like more enemies to this game. Probably the closest to a traumatic memory I've had with the original Pikmin is that the beady Longlegs comes back, and this time, well, I don't know why it didn't scare me in the first Pikmin, but I remember. So me and my sis, we were playing Pikmin 2, and we're gonna face the beady Longlegs, and so we walk into the arena and we see the shadow of a spider web on the floor. So we're kind of like, okay, it's gonna come, boom, and it just like comes like out of nowhere and just like startles and scares the crap out of us. Like we were screaming, and my mom was like, did a Nintendo game just scare you? And just yeah, just really good times. So yeah, some of the enemies come back, like the Emperor Ball Blacks, and they also added new ones like the Raging Bloister. Still really like the enemy designs; they're really enjoyably creepy. On a side note, by the way, my mom also really likes obviously, I mean, she didn't play a Pikmin, but she really likes like she thinks that the Pikmin themselves are really cute. It's like the one Nintendo franchise. I mean, she was cool with me playing Nintendo games, but it's like one of a couple Nintendo franchises that when she sees the character, she's like, "Oh, that's so cute." But it's really a jungle out there in terms of like the the enemies. So Nick said, "I think my cousin's NES was burned in a house fire." Ooh, that's terrible. Is your cousin gonna is your cousin considering getting like a NES, like buying a used one from like getting a replacement in some way? And Nick also asked, did you ever play Hey Pikmin on 3DS or nah? I played the beginning, but I got stuck on one of the parts, so I'll have to play it again someday. And JPW Girl says, have you seen the GameCube intro memes? Some of them are pretty funny. I've seen a couple of them. Like I saw there's one where the GameCube, you're talking about the one where like the GameCube intro just keeps going with the cube. Because in the usual GameCube intro, you get this cube that comes down and forms the GameCube logo, but in the memes, sometimes they form different shapes. So I've seen one where the cube forms the continent of Africa, and when it finishes, it starts playing Toto's Africa song. You know, the one that goes, I bless the rains down in Africa, like that song. Yeah, I thought that meme was funny. Nick said, my cousin was considering getting an NES Classic. Ooh. Is that going to be tough? Because I remember the NES Classic was hard to find. I hope your cousin can get one closer to the retail price. And hopefully it's not going to be one of those really insanely expensive ones. But yes, so Pikmin 2, really enjoyably fun game. And then we get to... Oh, this is another classic on the GameCube. The original... Well, I don't know if you can really call it the original, but Animal Crossing, at least the first Animal Crossing game that was released in the States, and still a really enjoyable game to this day. If you don't know the premise of Animal Crossing, basically you play as this character that moves into this new town, and you start a new life, building up your house and meeting a bunch of animal friends. And yeah, so with Animal Crossing, I got into the customization myself. A lot of the animal characters are very witty and funny to listen to. Like all the Animal Crossing games, me and my sis have good times catching fish and bugs in the game. When I look back on the original Animal Crossing, there is definitely some cues in the game that I kind of miss in its sequels. Like the intro music is something I miss. And some of the animations, like when a character laughs in the original Animal Crossing, they actually put like the words ha 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 over them. So it's like ha, and you see ha 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 all over like the character's face and things like that. Also had good times listening to KK Slider. In the GameCube version, I think KK would like hang out by the train station on Saturday nights, and you could ask him to play a song. And I remember I used to be like super derpy and ask him like songs that obviously you couldn't request. Like so I would put things in like play the Star Spangled Banner and things like that. And so, yes, so, and also another difference between Animal Crossing, the GameCube Animal Crossing, and some others is this time your characters can live in four separate houses, but they live in a sort of like neighborhood where they're relatively close together. And so have good times, also have good memories of getting scared by Rossetti. I was a really easily scared kid, come to think of it. By Rossetti, who is that mole that comes up when you forget to save, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he would just drive me crazy sometimes. Sometimes, most of the time, you could just get by Rossetti and just be like, "Okay, okay, I won't." Reset ever again. But then he'll do something really stupid where he'll say, repeat after me, say this sentence, and you have to type the sentence word for word. But even then, and I couldn't figure out if I was just not typing fast enough, and he would be like, that's not right, you try again. So, and ironically, it would just make me want to reset the game to get past him. So, but still, original Animal Crossing still a really great game. And I'm really glad that it has sequels. I'm actually pleasantly surprised to hear that it became a really popular series for Nintendo, especially the handheld versions. Nick said, I know New Horizons is on Switch, but I'd love it if they re-release the first Animal Crossing on Switch. Maybe if they ever do a Switch Virtual Console with GameCube games, I could see them doing that. I don't know if they'll ever consider remastering it for Switch, but maybe they could do some like Virtual Console sort of thing one of these days. And NJPW Girl said, my favorite one is when they played the intro and they showed a man falling on the ground and yelled shit. I died laughing at that. That sounds funny. Nick said, Rossetti never scared me, but the tarantulas scared me. Are you referring to the ones in the later games? Because I know it's annoying when the tarantulas like find your character and bite like them, and your character faints. So, yeah. So I don't know if I would say scared, but Rossetti would kind of just get on my nerves. Because I'm just like, yeah, I learned my lesson. I'm sorry, get out of my face. Like, it's that sort of thing. I'm just like, buzz off. I want to play. I want to go fishing. Next one is my personal favorite of the Super Smash Brothers games, Super Smash Brothers Melee. This was actually a really great game for me to play on the GameCube back then. Like, not only because I thought it was a fun fighting game, but what's also really great for Nintendo newcomers is it has most of the Nintendo cast. You have Mario, Yoshi, Princess Peach, Donkey Kong, Star Fox. Like, they're basically, like, nearly all of them are in this game. Melee also introduced people in Western markets to the Fire Emblem franchise. And the funny thing about Melee was that I didn't know these characters came from individual games. Like, I just thought, they must be all, like, Super Smash Brothers characters. But it's like, no, they're all, like, from individual Nintendo franchises. Many of Nintendo's most famous characters are in this game. So that's honestly, like, I wonder if for a lot of people, if the Smash Brothers games are a great way to introduce people to Nintendo's characters, because many of the cast are in these games. So yeah, Melee is my personal favorite of the games. Used to play it a lot as a kid. And I think for me, when it comes to Smash games, I kind of this is more of a personal preference for me. I mean, I do like playing the other Smash games like Brawl, the one for Wii U. Ultimate, I'm honestly kind of lukewarm on but for me, I think I liked Smash best when it mostly focused on like the local multiplayer, but that's mainly because most of the time when I play Smash, I just play like the classic mode and adventure mode, and maybe play a match if I'm going over to like my cousin's house and they want to play the latest Smash games. maybe I'll talk more about Subspace Emissary in my Wii video. But yeah, Smash Brothers Melee, one of my personal favorite GameCube games and my all-time favorite Super Smash Brothers game. Nick said, "Yeah, it scared me when my character fainted." Yeah, funny enough, yeah, that happens to me sometimes in New Horizons. Then we get to Super Monkey Ball. This is actually a pleasant surprise. I'm not really sure how I ended up playing this game. I didn't know as a kid who Sega was, but I do remember having good times with Super Monkey Ball as a kid. Basically, Super Monkey Ball is basically, I guess you could say, like a party game where it has a lot of mini games like billiards, bowling, and golf. And the main, I guess you could say, the main crux of the game is you complete these, I guess you could call them obstacle courses, where you have to go from start to finish, and many of them either have really like strange layouts and crazy designs, and they're often like tough to navigate. But I still remember having good times playing this game with my sister or as a kid. So yeah, Super Monkey Ball. I do have its sequel as well, Super Monkey Ball 2, and I really like the mini games in the sequel, like the bowling. There was also like a dogfight game and a race game, and I think there was also like a shooting game as well, which had really epic music. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring it onto this video, but yeah, Super Monkey Ball, really great game. One of my favorite Sega franchises. I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't really. I was too young to know about the whole Nintendo versus Sega sort of thing. But I wonder if this was like one of the most like, I guess you could say, random slash unexpected things to ever happen, where Sega games are on a Nintendo console. Because I'm sure by like today's standards, that would be like seeing God of War on the Xbox Series X. You know, it's like, wait, what? Like my favorite company's competitors' games are coming to my console. Oh my god! Yeah. So, Kirby Air Ride. Also mentioned this in my remastered video. It's basically a Kirby racing game where you're going around on all these different, what they call stars, but it's really different vehicles. So it's not just the Warp Star on that Kirby usually rides. You can also unlock a whole different bunch of variants. Like I remember there was like a jet like star that was black and white. And if you look on the back, you can see other choices. You see that Kirby's riding this bike here. You could also play as Meta Knight. It's not really coming up on video, but you could also see like King Dedede hanging out in the back. Like, really, so yeah, really fun game. It has 3 different racing modes. There's Air Ride, where you could play with friends on these really crazy courses. There's also Top Ride, where you're playing on smaller courses with 2 different stars. And then there's the City Trial, where you're going around collecting power-ups and completing all sorts of challenges, and you're powering up your vehicle so that you could take your friends on any sort of final challenge. NJPW Girl said Nintendo versus Sega equals Mario versus Sonic. Get it? Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm familiar with Genesis does, as they say. Although, funny enough, one of my favorite Sega commercials, aside from Sega to Sanjiro, is there was one for the Game Gear where there was this kid playing a Game Boy, and they're making fun of how the Game Boy at the time didn't have a color screen. So the kid grabs this, I'm not even kidding, it looks like a dead squirrel, and hits his face, and he gets all woozy, and it's like, whoa, color. And the commercial goes on to say, nah, the Game Gear is cooler, check it out, it's got a color screen. I thought it was a really funny commercial. Pugtato God, how are you? What do you mean by I never thought about that, LOL? Nick said, never played Kirby Air Ride, but it looks so fun. Yeah, I mean, man, that's the thing, and maybe I'll talk about this a bit more later on in the video, but because, like, the GameCube doesn't get as many re-releases as, like, Wii and even original DS games, it just kind of feels like many of the classic GameCube games, like Kirby Air Ride, are just being kind of left in the past. I really wish Nintendo would bring them over to the Switch. And so we go on to 2 kind of surprising games. These are based on different franchises, but I had a ton of fun playing these games as a kid. So I'll start off with Rugrats Royal Ransom. I really liked this game as a kid. Basically, what happens in Royal Ransom is you go around completing all these different stages. Like, you race against snowmen, you're flying around the circus, and you're running around this one stage where these aliens with like one eye are coming and like shooting their eyes at you. And it just had like a variety of all these different mini games. Some of them I think it was some of them you just needed to complete a course, and some of them you needed to finish this race. I remember there was also one where you're flying around on a magic carpet and you're going racing around this one course, and you're getting through all of them in order to beat Angelica. So I remember having a good time with this game as a kid. I thought it was really unique in how they were able to who mix all these different sorts of games together into one reasonably good package. I got into this game so much that I still remember getting in trouble with my mom this one time because I wouldn't stop playing this game for hours this one time when I got home from kindergarten. And when I finished hours later, my mom was really pissed off. So, yeah, and then, yeah, so it's just, yeah, really, really crazy stuff. Nick said, that game sounds fun. And yeah, it is. If you could find a copy for GameCube, I would recommend it. Potato God said, I'm dumb and didn't realize that Mario vs. Sonic is a reference to their rivalry. And JPW Girl said, Billy Hatcher just popped into my head, so did Shenmue. I was probably thinking about Sonic and Sega All-Stars. And Nick said, hey, Shenmue. Also, Bill Hatcher is interesting. So, going on to the last GameCube game I have here. It's a movie-based game, but it's a really good one at that. Over the Hedge. So, yeah, you're basically going around fighting off a bunch of enemy creatures in order to complete stages and steal food from people's houses, kind of like the Over the Hedge movie. I guess you could kind of say it's sort of like a sequel to what happens in the movie, because the game starts off with stages that were inspired by the ending of Over the Hedge, and then you're going around to all these different sorts of houses and different locations and getting into all these fights with the exterminators, like animals. So I remember there would be like animals like rats and gophers and what I could only describe as kung fu rabbits that would just come and beat the shit out of your characters, and you're fighting against them in order to steal snacks. There's a rescue mission in the game where you have to rescue this one character at the very end. But yeah, I still remember having like a particularly game ragey moment as a kid. I remember there's one part of the game where your characters are at some sort of amusement park and you have to climb over this like waterfall, and the jumps are really hard to pull off. And I remember I used to get mad and call the game developers idiots, and just, I mean, I didn't like throw a controller across the room, but I remember like kind of tossing the controller like toward, like not like super far away, but yeah. Nick said, Over the Hedge is a good game. I might have to replay that game because I used to not like it, and I don't remember why. I mean, I wouldn't call it like Game of the Year good, but it's still, an enjoyably fun game with lots of mayhem. So, yeah, NJPW said, haha, Kung Fu Rabbits look like Poe has some competition. Yeah. But I would still recommend in this game. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah, so overall, the GameCube definitely was capable of giving me and my sis a lot of childhood memories, and still a lot of objectively good games to play in this day and age. So, yeah, I really got to hand it to the system, and I really think it's a really great system to start playing Nintendo games on. In terms of shortcomings, I kind of wanted to talk a bit about why the GameCube sold, I think it was around 22 million units, which in terms of Nintendo's history isn't really that great. It's a little more than what the Wii U sold, but it was still behind even the Nintendo 64. And it's honestly kind of tricky for me to pinpoint why the GameCube didn't sell as well as like the original Xbox or the PS2. I think it really just came down to one is that the GameCube wasn't capable of playing DVDs, which was a really hot feature. I know the original Xbox could also play DVDs, and it sold like a few million more units than the GameCube. But I think it was a really huge selling point on the PS2 at the time. And I've even heard like it said that the PS2 was the most affordable DVD player in Japan when it first came out. So I think it kind of missed the boat. And a consequence of, even though I kind of like looking at these GameCube discs, the really like tiny discs that kind of look like mini discs. One of the problems with this format was it couldn't store nearly as much data as a DVD that the PS2 and the original Xbox could. So I think that explains why some games of the 6th generation weren't able to come to the original GameCube because the format was too small. In terms of other games that I didn't show in the video because I don't have copies of them. There was also 2 of Nintendo's first M-rated games came out on the GameCube: Eternal Darkness and Geist. I've heard especially Eternal Darkness is a legitimately scary game. Maybe I'll try one of these games. And speaking of scary games, Resident Evil 4 was a GameCube exclusive for a time, and then it got ported to other systems after a while. I haven't played the GameCube version of RE4, but I briefly played the beginning of RE4 on my cousin's PS2, and we used to get really freaked out by what we call the chainsaw guy, and when I screwed up, the chainsaw guy would cut off the main character Leon S. Kennedy's head, and we were just gonna be like, "Oh no, the chainsaw guy!" So maybe someday I'll beat RE4, and the GameCube also had the remake of the first Metal Gear Solid, The Twin Snakes. Honestly, if I ever want to try playing MGS1 again, I do technically have MGS1 on the PlayStation Classic, but I think I still need to get used to the controls. But if I play MGS1 again, I think I want to give the Twin Snakes a try because you have the ability to use weapons in first person in that game, and I personally prefer that for playing Metal Gear Solid games. So in terms of other reasons why I don't think the GameCube sold nearly as well as the original Xbox and PS2, I think some people may have also been turned off at the time by like the GameCube's more, I guess you could admittedly child-friendly appeal because it was this, like, oh, this cool lunchbox. And some people think that the fact that one of the launch colors was the indigo purple like scared away a lot of people, and they were like, oh, so it's just the Nintendo Kitty system. It's an aspect of Nintendo I don't really like to talk about, but I think that was also might have been the case. I think most of it came down to things like the lack of DVD support and the fact that its optical disc format wasn't nearly as big as it couldn't hold as much data as a DVD like on the PS2 and the original Xbox. Nick said, also, I didn't know the original Xbox could play DVDs. It can, although according to Adam Corlett's video, you need some sort of adapter to play. It's like a little like tiny adapter or something. You could check out his video. Nick said, RIP Wii U in terms of its sales alone. I love the console, though, which I'll talk about next. And I think one of the reasons why the GameCube, it kind of has, like, its legacy, why it's kind of more pushed in the past compared to something like the Nintendo 64 and the Wii. I think it's because, honestly, the GameCube, to me, as much as I really like this console and it really introduced me to Nintendo's franchises and games, it honestly kind of has like in terms of what it's known for, it's not really like I would say it's not nearly as distinctive in Nintendo's history as some of their other systems. And what I mean by that is when you think of systems like the NES, people associate that with that, oh, it's that really cool 8-bit system. The N64 was known for its 3D graphics. the Wii was known for playing motion games like WarioWare, and the Switch is known for being the console that's able to be both a portable system and a home console. Whereas the GameCube, the most distinctive thing I could say about it is, I mean, its design was relatively unique, I would say, but in terms of what it's known for, in terms of how you play its games or how you look, it honestly kind of blends in with the PS2 and the original Xbox. Still really great games, don't get me wrong. I have really good memories playing games like Pikmin and Super Smash Bros. Melee, but I think historically speaking, and compared to some of Nintendo's other systems, it just kind of like fades into the background and isn't really nearly as distinctive as something like the NES or the N64. But shortcomings aside, I still really like the GameCube. I'm still really glad that this is basically the system that got me into video games, and I'm really thankful for that. And JPW said, I used to have a Nintendo DS. I used to too, and I'll be talking about that more next week on the original DS's anniversary. So if you have even more thoughts on the GameCube or its games, you could let me know in the chat. It's been really fun so far talking about it with you all. And so, let's go on. Oh, Nick, what'd you say? The GameCube standout feature is the Game Boy Player, I guess. Yeah, I would say, it was still a nice feature to have. Being able to play. Did the Game Boy Player, did it just play GBA games, or could it play Game Boy Color and original Game Boy games? Because I know it could play GBA games. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but I'm not really sure if it's like a super distinctive feature. Because like with the Super Nintendo, it had the Super Game Boy, which, don't get me wrong, that's awesome. Being able to play the Game Boy games on the TV, like that feature is really nice. But most people remember the Super Nintendo for its 16-bit games like Super Mario World and Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So yeah, but in terms of the games it could play, they are really fun to play, and some of them really stand out on the GameCube, like the original Animal Crossing and Pikmin. But I think compared to systems like the NES and Wii, it's not quite as distinctive. Still a really good system, though, don't get me wrong. So, with that in mind, let's move on to the Wii U. Yes, so this is, I guess you could say, well, as IGN put it, it's like if the original Wii and DS had a romantic night and got together, and this was the system it made. So the Wii U, in a sense, was sort of a dual screen system in that your top screen was your TV, but your controller had a screen itself. It had this touch screen here, 6.2-inch touch screen, where you could interact with games in numerous ways. Sometimes using the touch screen would supplement the gameplay, like in Nintendo Land, for instance. You could throw ninja stars from the screen while the targets would appear on the TV itself. And sometimes you could use the Wii U gamepad to play games on the controller itself. Like you were able to play Batman Arkham City through that method as well. So I do like the Wii U itself. Actually, before I get into talking about the Wii U, I'll actually show you what the console itself look like. So I actually have the black deluxe version of the Wii U. The way I describe this system, think of the Wii U as basically a Wii but with rounded edges, and it's a longer system, probably to supplement the HD hardware the system has. So yeah, so the system itself, it's got a eject button, power button, sync button for syncing controllers. The front has a SD card slot that's for storing Wii data, and it has two USB 2 ports on the front. The back, it's going to be kind of hard to see. You got, there you go, power port, AV out, sensor bar, the first Nintendo console with HDMI, and got some more USB ports as well. Nice thing about the Wii U is, well, let me back up a bit. The thing about the Wii U was, so it came out November 18th, 2012, and it sold in two different bundles. There was a basic version, which came with a white system, which had a really teeny tiny amount of 8 gigabytes of storage. And there was the deluxe model, which I just showed you, which was a black system that came with 32 gigabytes of storage, which was also not great. And that deluxe system also came with a few accessories, like a stand, this stand for propping up the Wii U Gamepad. It also came with a charging stand, a savings program, and Nintendo Land, which is nice. So, the thing about the Wii U is, I do like the console. It had its share of good games like Yoshi's Woolly World and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and it even got a fair amount of third-party games. Like, I remember there are some Assassin's Creed games you can get for the Wii U. I have Batman Arkham City, which is a really nice beat 'em up. It's kind of like a beat 'em up with the layout of like a Zelda sort of game. Activision released a couple Call of Duty games on the Wii U as well. As much as I do like the system, I'll be honest, I wasn't really like super sold on the whole gamepad concept. Now, as big as the Wii U gamepad is, it's not as huge as like, you know, you would think. Like, it's not gonna weigh like 3 pounds and it'll be like a cinder block. Like, no, that's not at all. It actually feels really light. It's got a couple grips in the back for holding it pretty well. I know some people didn't like how for the Wii U, the control sticks, they put them, instead of like on the GameCube where they had one on the top left side and one on the bottom right, they're both like at the top. But for me, it's something that I personally could get used to. It also had nice D-pad. Buttons are nice, although I wish they were a bit more clicky. Start and select. Nice thing about the Wii U to this day is you actually have a TV button, which you could literally use to change channels on your TV. I actually use that feature quite a bit. And on the back, well, the top, you have the two bumper buttons and two triggers. And you could have also gotten this Pro controller, which they also sold in white. Again, very similar layout to the gamepad itself in terms of where the buttons are. It does kind of look like the Xbox 360 controller, interestingly. The triggers on the top, and it charges with mini USB. The Wii U gamepad uses a proprietary connection. I do like both controllers. I actually really like using the Wii U Pro controller. Something that kind of... One of the shortcomings of this controller, though, is that the triggers are what they call digital triggers. So, unlike... is my... I don't... I can't find... I don't see my... PS4 controller. So unlike a PS4 controller where the triggers are analog, meaning they're sensitive to how hard or lightly you press the button, on the Wii U and Switch, the triggers, they basically only have one input where it's like you're either on or off regardless of how hard you press the buttons, which it doesn't ruin games for me. Like on the Switch, I could use the digital triggers to play Wolfenstein 2 and Doom 2016 just fine, but I kind of wish it had that analog ability. As much as I do like the Wii U, and I'll get into... Actually, let's keep it going. I'll talk about shortcomings toward the end. I know it's getting kind of haphazard. Let's actually talk about some of the games. I don't have nearly as many as the GameCube because some of them are stored I downloaded digitally, and I'll get to those at the end. So you have Nintendo Land, which, as many people point out, this is basically the Wii U's equivalent of Wii Sports. So this game, it's basically a Nintendo amusement park where you get to play games, many of them involving the Wii U Gamepad, and many of the mini games are inspired by Nintendo franchises. Like there's a balloon fight game, there's a Yoshi game where you're going around drawing like a course for Yoshi to go around and eat fruit. And the idea of the game is you have to they would show what the map looks like on the TV, and you would have to kind of guess what the route would be like on the Wii U gamepad. I thought that was rather interesting. There was also a Donkey Kong game where you're going around this obstacle course. There's an F-Zero game where you're racing around the F-Zero machines and driving the Wii U gamepad like it's a vertical steering wheel like this. Probably better if I like demonstrate like that. So it's pretty decent. I honestly didn't have quite as much fun of it as I did with Wii Sports, but I would say it's an alright introduction to the games on the Wii U. So next game we have here is Batman Arkham City Armored Edition. One of the selling points for the Wii U, for me, at least when it first came out, is I really liked how they were able to get some third-party support, at least at the beginning of the Wii U's life. And this was actually my first experience getting to play Batman Arkham City. It is a fun game to play on the Wii U. I actually played much of it using the gamepad on itself. So yeah, so Warner Brothers made a pretty decent port of Arkham City. They also came out with, I think they made one more game. I don't remember. Arkham Origins, that was also released on the Wii U. And at the beginning of the Wii U's life, it was able to get, once again, it did get some third-party games like the Call of Duty games. There was a couple Assassin's Creed games. Ubisoft was like their one of the longer third-party supporters, and they brought over games like Watch Dogs and Splinter Cell and many others. Zombie U, which I've heard very mixed things on Zombie U. Some people say it's a decent game. Others say it sucks. You could let me know what you think of the of Zombie U if you played it. So, on to the next one, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. I've actually come to play this game quite a lot in more recent years. It's a pretty decent Smash game, and it's nice to see Smash make the transition to HD. It is admittedly a little bit, it is a little disappointing that they didn't include an adventure mode like the Subspace Emissary on Super Smash Bros. Brawl, but I still think that as a fighting game, Super Smash Bros. Wii U is pretty fun to play. Okay, so next one. Nick asked, Arkham Origins was on Wii U. I didn't know that. Also, Splinter Cell is on the Wii U. Yeah, so Arkham Origins did come to Wii U, but they removed the, they didn't include the multiplayer mode in the Wii U version. And I think the Splinter Cell game was called Splinter Cell Blacklist or something like that. You could Google it up. If I was wrong, let me know in the chat. Next game. I admittedly didn't play this game that much, but my sister was a big fan of this, Splatoon. I really think that if you're going to have a Wii U video, I can't help but mention Splatoon because it started life on the Wii U. So it's basically a shooter game where you're going around shooting ink to a bunch of like squid kids. From what I've seen from like my sister play Splatoon, it does look like a fun game. She does say some of the multiplayer matches do get really difficult at times. Like she had a really hard time fighting the snipers in Splatoon. But it does look like a really creative game. I'm not really into Splatoon as much. When I need to have my when I need to have my shooter fix, I often play. I'm more of a Doom and sort of Wolfenstein fan, but Splatoon does look promising if you're into that. And the last physical game. NGPW Girl said, I forgot about Splatoon 2. Well, don't feel too bad. Ed. Did you have good times playing that game? Looks like Nick did. Remembers Xbox Connect. I didn't really play Connect all. Oops, sorry, looks like we had a bit of a hiccup there, but I think we're going back. The last physical game that I have to show is Super Mario 3D World. Pretty good game. I've played a good amount of it on the Wii U. It's a lot of fun going around completing all these different courses. It's very similar to Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS. But I thought it was a pretty decent game. This kind of make me feel a bit sad that the Wii U and 3DS didn't get like a really all-new Super Mario game, like something like a Super Mario Odyssey or a Super Mario 64. It didn't get quite something like that on the Wii U, but as a game itself, it's objectively a pretty good one. And now we go on to the digital games, which I don't have on hand, so I'll just have to explain aim for myself. And GPW Girl said, I never played Splatoon, but I have seen the gameplay on YouTube. Nick said, I can't wait for the Wii video, lol. It's coming tomorrow. I'm going to be doing that stream tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time and 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, I have really good memories of the original Wii. In terms of what other digital games I have, I have Yoshi's Woolly World. It's the game where you're going around as Yoshi, and now, like all the characters look like they're made out of yarn, and you're going around completing different platforming courses. I actually think that was a really fun game. It's honestly one of my favorites on the Wii U. It's a lot of fun. I'm going around, and Yoshi, of course, jumps around, and you have the ability to throw eggs at enemies and eat the enemies like Shy Guys, so you could turn them into eggs. So yeah, I really like the game myself. I actually bought when they released the Poochie amiibo for the 3DS version, I bought the Poochie amiibo, so it's really fun stuff. And Nick said, also, yeah, that's true. Mario 3D World is a good game, but it's not a heavy-hitting game. Yeah, I mean, what I mean by that is, it's not that 3D World or 3D Land are bad games. Like, by no means, no. They're really fun games to play, but they're not really like the genre, like the, earth-shattering, like, kind of Mario games where it feels like, it, opens, that's like super innovative the way like Super Mario 64 is with its 3D worlds, or Super Mario Galaxy where you're going, up, around, and upside down through different courses, or Super Mario Odyssey with its really vast open worlds. So, yeah, but I still like a 3D World just fine. Another game I played was Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. It's funny, I'm actually quite surprised that I've only played the opening of it. It's a really hard game. The main reason I got into Ninja Gaiden was because I really liked Koei Tecmo's Warriors games like Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors. Ninja Gaiden is a much more challenging animal, and that you really have to like think in order to beat these games, in terms of you have to like block enemies and dodge their. Yeah, sorry, I might have some internet hiccups, but I'll just keep going. But every time I play that game, I always get so close to, like, accidentally getting Ryu killed. Like, I get to the point where I'm fighting enemies, and then you start hearing that, heartbeat sound effect, like, boom, 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 indicating that Ryu is about to die, and somehow I just barely make it out of those situations. So I think it really just takes practice in order to play Ninja Gaiden 3. So really, really good game, but it is tough as nails. I have also played, I've played the NES Ninja Gaiden. I've also played Ninja Gaiden 1, the PS3 version using PlayStation Now, and that was pretty good. I actually want to get the Vita version of both Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1 and 2 someday. Another game, I'm going back to third parties. Another third-party game I really liked on the Wii U is Injustice Gods Among Us. I have that game as well. Basically, you could call the Injustice games basically Justice League, the fighting game. It's made by, I think it's made by the Mortal Kombat creators. It's not nearly as violent and gruesome as Mortal Kombat, but yeah, you could play as all the DC characters from like Batman, Superman, The Flash, and Joker. The villains as well, as I mentioned, Joker, Harley Quinn. And yeah, the Wii U version is a pretty decent port as well. My main is the Flash, by the way. For some reason, whenever I play Injustice, I'm always really good when it comes to playing the Flash. So yeah, Injustice Gods Among Us got a pretty decent port on the Wii U. So overall, I would say the Wii U was a pretty good console. It does have its fair share of objectively good games. Why I sound a little lukewarm talking about the Wii U. I know, Nick, you mentioned before, or not Nick, I'm sorry, NJPW Girl, you mentioned that people hated the Wii U. For me, it's not that I hate the Wii U. Like, no, I do really like the system. And as with basically nearly every Nintendo system they've ever made, it has its share of really exciting games. And as much as I do give them props for being innovative, like, trying to be unique with this Wii U gamepad, it's not one of it's not I don't want to call it a gimmick, but it's not one of those like Nintendo systems where they do something different where I'm like completely like in love with like the different concept, the way the Nintendo DS had the two screens, or the Switch has the ability to go from being a handheld to a home console. I guess for me, I never really got into I didn't like really get into using the Wii U gamepad as a controller because it may not be super like heavy, like it doesn't weigh like 50 pounds and is super heavy, but it is still a, really wide and big controller. There are times where when I'm playing a game that doesn't necessarily involve using the second screen, I'm just like, I think I'd rather play Super Smash Brothers using the Wii U Pro controller. And I remember my cousin, actually, the one who introduced me to Nintendo games, he didn't want to get a Wii U because he thought the controller was like too big and bulky, which it's not bulky, but it is a really wide controller, which leads me into my thoughts on why Nick, you mentioned this earlier on the stream, why the Wii U didn't sell very well. If anything, in terms of like the mainstream home consoles, the Wii U was one of the lower selling Nintendo systems, which I'm gonna unlock my iPad. Actually, I want to get some people on my Discord to come over to the stream. I nearly forgot. Yeah, so follow me on Discord. The link is in the description. But I'll get it. But yeah, I'm gonna send a link to my I'm gonna send a link to the stream on my Discord, and then I'll get back to talking about the Wii U. Yeah. So, Nick, you said I mostly use my Wii U for Netflix now. I think they're starting to phase out video service support on Wii U because you could still watch Netflix and YouTube, but when I tried using Hulu, it didn't work. So with the Wii U, yeah, so the Wii U, unfortunately, it only sold less than 14 million units. And I think, Nick, you said earlier, or let me actually double check. Yeah, they didn't market the Wii U well, TBH. And I think the thing about the Wii U's marketing, like this is often a thing that gets brought up in terms of why the Wii U didn't really sell well. I think in terms of like marketing to their most hardcore audience, like the people that follow Nintendo all the time and read Nintendo news articles and follow their social media, the marketing was adequate. I heard about the Wii U and it was coming out. I remember watching that announcement back during E3 2011 when both Reggie Fils-Aimé and the late Satoru Iwata introduced it. And But in terms of like marketing to a mass audience, more than likely, actually the ones that make up most of Nintendo sales, it didn't nearly work out as well. And as people often bring up, and this is actually really weird for me to explain because for me as a person that follows Nintendo, I understand that, oh, the Wii U, it's Nintendo's new console. And even like immediate family members and could understand that. Like I remember I didn't get the Wii U at launch. What happened was I think somehow my mom must have heard me talk about the Wii U, and so I remember coming home from school one day. I think the Wii U came out when I was in high school, and she said something like, "I got you your Christmas present," and I looked behind the couch and I was just like, oh, "It's the Wii U!" So yeah, so in terms of marketing to Nintendo's like most hardcore of fans, followers, and maybe even some like family members, it was adequate, not great, but it gets the message across. But in terms of the mass market, it's honestly a really confusing system. I could see why it would be a confusing system to explain to people. Like I've heard people who have like tried explaining the Wii U to either like 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 average Joes or family members, where it's like, oh, did you hear Nintendo is coming out with a new console? And by the way, thank you, Nick, for joining my Discord. I hope anybody else watching the stream, please feel free to join my Discord. I would really like to discuss the Wii U, GameCube, original DS, and original Wii on Discord because I'm going to be talking about these systems going into next week. But it's the kind of thing where it's like they'll try explaining the Wii U to like family members or friends, and it's like, wait, the Wii, isn't that Nintendo's console from years ago? And they'd be like, no, Nintendo's coming out with this new system. And it's like, the gamepad controller? Like, the gamepad controller, isn't that an accessory? And it's like, no, it's a new system. So it's admittedly, yeah, I could see why it would be hard to explain the Wii U to customers, because it's like, is it an HD version of the Wii, or is it just a gamepad tablet controller accessory for the Wii? So yeah, admittedly, it's kind of really, I could see why that would be confusing to explain, because in comparison with something like the Switch, it's very apparent what it is just by looking at it. It's like, okay, so it's the Nintendo system where you take it out of the dock and you could also interchange controllers, whereas with the Wii U, yeah, I could see why that's harder to explain. I also didn't think the advertising for the Wii U, it wasn't nearly as out. They didn't really put as much into advertising as I see in comparison to the Switch. I mean, I've seen like some of the Wii U ads, but not nearly as much as something like the Switch or prior Nintendo systems. So I think that's also like that's a big part of why the Wii U wasn't successful. I know some people have even suggested that Nintendo should have change the name and give it a different name and make it more distinct. And I think where Nintendo was coming from with the Wii U and why they called it that was, I think they wanted to capitalize on the Wii name in a similar manner to how they capitalized on the NES name when they went from the NES to the Super Nintendo. Because with the Super Nintendo, it was like, we're going to go from the Nintendo Entertainment System to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. But even then, I think that's also really apparent. It's like, oh, it's a Super NES, so it's like a whole new system. Whereas like you go from Wii to Wii U, it's like, what is that? And I remember Reggie saying the idea behind the Wii U name is that, yes, the Wii was a really good system for everyone in the family, but could it also be tailored just for you? So I think one of the reasons why was like the advertising, and even like the selling point of the Wii U might be hard to explain to mass consumers, especially. Yeah, it's funny because especially because when I think back on like what I thought of the Wii U's advertising back when it was Nintendo's main console, I was like, I mean, the advertising was all right. But in comparison to what they're doing with the Switch, I could see why the Switch is a far more successful system for Nintendo. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Wii U is still a good system, but it didn't sell nearly as well even in comparison to the Switch. I also think one of the downsides with the Wii U is that because in terms of the system's horsepower, it was from my understanding it was more powerful than the PS3 and Xbox 360, but it wasn't nearly as powerful as like a PS4 and Xbox One. And even though yes, I know Nintendo systems mainly sell on the back of their first party games, that's not to say it wouldn't that's not to say that it would hurt them if they still had third party support. And I think that's why as the Wii U went on and it didn't really sell really well, because 14 million units for a lifetime, if that was in its first year, that would be amazing. But for a system that was out on the market for around 4.5 years, that's not very good stuff. Again, in comparison, the GameCube sold nearly, I think, 24 million units. And as the Wii U went on and it just didn't sell well, third party support dried up. And I think a really telling sign, what turned out to be a really telling sign of the Wii U's sales disaster was there was, quite a few third-party companies that came out and either called the system crap or like Bethesda openly said, I mean, they didn't call it crap, but they were like, yeah, we're not going to support the Wii U. And even the third-party companies that supported the Wii U in the beginning, like Activision and Ubisoft, eventually left, especially when the PS4 and Xbox One, not when those systems first came out, but as time went on and they started to release games on just PS4, Xbox One, and PC, they started to leave the Wii U behind because the hardware couldn't support those games. Yeah, so Nick said, ideally the Wii U should have sold 5,000 units or more a year. Really, a successful console should be selling, like, I would say 10 million units per year to be successful. Although, granted, if they sold 5 million per year, that would have also been pretty good. Because if they sold 5 million a year, then the lifetime sales of the Wii U might have been right around what the the GameCube was able to accomplish. So I think those were the couple of reasons why the Wii U flopped. Couple reasons, but they were still pretty big ones. And of course, Nintendo was able to remedy much of that. I even still remember when GameSpot interviewed Reggie Fils-Aimé, the now retired head of Nintendo America, and he even acknowledged one of the biggest problems with the Wii U was that it's just it didn't really have like a distinct identity. Like, he was interviewed and he said the Nintendo Switch, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was basically saying the Switch is a much more defined console compared to the Wii U. So I think overall the Wii U, while on its own is a good system with some really great games like Yoshi's Woolly World, Smash for Wii U, it had, while it still had, really good games and even some decent third-party offerings like Injustice: Gods Among Us and Batman: Arkham City. It didn't sell very well because it was a tricky system to market. I also didn't think Nintendo didn't really give much effort into marketing the Wii U as much as they should. And because its horsepower was sandwiched between the 7th generation systems and the 8th generation, that was why it didn't sell very well. So yeah, still a good system, don't get me wrong, but I think like the concept of the system didn't really appeal to me as much as something like even the original Wii. The interesting thing I've noticed is that it seems like the people who hated the original Wii turned out to be people who really liked the Wii U. I'm wondering if it's like a sort of thing where it's like people who didn't like the original Wii will go on to like the Wii U, and people who like the original Wii didn't get into the Wii U as much. Like, I mean, by no means do I hate the Wii U. I still play it every now and then, but the concept of the system didn't really appeal to me as much as something like the Wii or even Switch or even the 3D ES. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like using the 3D effects of the 3DS, but still the games were fun. So I'll keep the stream going. If you have any more to say about the Wii U and GameCube, let me know in the chat. I'll keep this going. As long as there's still as long as you still want to talk about it. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do on Discord is I'm gonna start asking everybody what are your favorite GameCube and Wii U games. And so in terms of what other streams I'll be doing, I'm gonna be doing one on the original Wii tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time and 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And next on November 21st, which day is that this coming Saturday, I'll be doing one on the Nintendo DS because that's going to be the anniversary of the original DS. So Nick said, I like the Wii, but for some games the Wii remote isn't fun to use. Which I agree. I think there's some games on the original Wii where I didn't really like how they kind of made it mandatory to use the motion controls. I would still like to play Metroid Prime Trilogy. I have that for Wii U, but I don't like how I wish I could just use like the Wii U Pro controller for Metroid Prime Trilogy, but instead you have to wave the Wiimote around in order to aim Samus's arm cannon. Did you have any examples, Nick, of which Wii games you didn't like as much? I'm trying to think what else to say. I'll also say one of the cool things about the Wii U was Earthbound fans would know what it is. That was the system where Nintendo finally brought both Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings to the Wii U. Really like to see. I'm not sure why those two games are not on the Nintendo Switch's online platform. NJPW Girl asked, how long has it been since the original DS has been released? The year 2020 will be its 16th birthday. It was released in November 2004. Which makes me feel kind of old because I got my original DS, not at launch, but the New Year's following its launch. And Nick said, I understand they wanted you to think the Wii Remote was like Link's sword in Twilight Princess, but I didn't find that fun. Which I'll talk about. I think I'll talk about that more when I do the Wii stream tomorrow. Nick said, 16th birthday / anniversary of the DS. Dang. Yeah, I know. It's weird for me because this isn't like a system where the original DS, this isn't like a system where it's like, oh, it came out before I was born and I got it as a kid. Like, that was like a system where I was around for a time before there was such a thing as a Nintendo DS. So it's like crazy to me to think that it's almost turning 16. In a few years, it'll be a 20-year-old system. It'll be like there will be a day just like there was a day where the NES used to be 20 years old. And JBW Girl has 16 years. Yeah, look it up. It originally came out in November of 2004. Yeah, and I also have really good memories of the original DS and Wii. And those videos those streams I think are going to be like I would say in comparison much more I guess you could say optimistic. I mean, I do have my qualms with the Wii here and there, but those are systems I had really good memories of playing with as a kid. And I hope you'll be able to join me tomorrow night for those streams. Nick asks, kind of off topic, but have you played Genshin Impact? No, I've never even heard of that game, sorry to say. So, yeah, if there's anybody else that is watching the stream, you could let me know your thoughts on the Nintendo GameCube and Wii U. And by the way, NJPW Girl, thank you again for sending me that link to the that meditation soundtrack. I watch it every now and then to relieve stress. So I think if there's this is it. I'll keep the stream going for 10 more minutes in case anybody else shows up. Yeah, so I think as time goes on, in the last 10 minutes, I'll think of what more could I say about the Wii U and GameCube. Not that not that I'm gonna like mention this game for like 3 million times, but I know I mentioned the Wii U got Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings, which I still wish those games would come to Switch one of these days, and hopefully not through a limited release like what they're doing with Fire Emblem and Mario 3D All Stars. Still would like Mother 3 to come to Switch one of these days. I mean, I understand the reasons why the chances seem really slim, but it's still really, still really amazing game. I really like following the story of Mother 3. And it's funny, earlier today, I was playing Ridge Racer 3D on my 3DS, and I wasn't doing too well in one of those races. And then, for some reason, it just reminded me of, like, some songs from Earthbound, like the Pollyanna song, the I Believe in You song, which made me think of, like, the really strong emotional scenes in Mother 3, because it's like, I might have, like, if that game ever gets localized, and if I suck at some of the battles, it's like, it may sting to losing battles, but some of the really dramatic scenes in Mother 3 can really tug at your heartstrings in a way I've never really seen, at least the video games I've played, like have done it, it's just like, wow. It almost feels like the like it. If it was a movie, it would be trying to win Best Picture at the Oscars or something. Nick said, "I'm so glad they re-released Luigi's Mansion on the 3DS. Otherwise, I probably would have never played it." And there you go. It's nice that they brought that game over to 3DS. And GPW Girl says, speaking of Luigi, this reminds me of the Death Stare video. I'm not sure what you're referring to, NJPW Girl. Let me see if I could maybe find it on my phone. I mean, I can't show it in the stream, but... Oh, the Mario Kart Death Stare? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's pretty funny. And I have played Luigi's Mansion as a kid, but I didn't get past the that baby. I think the name was like Chauncey. I remember a friend of mine was telling me about the baby scene. Yeah, maybe we'll beat Luigi's Mansion one of these days. But the fact that Nintendo brought over Mario 3D All-Stars to Switch, which contained Super Mario Sunshine, and now that they're releasing GameCube controller support, I hope that's a sign that Nintendo is considering bringing over some other GameCube games to the Switch in the future. Even if they just do the thing where it's like Nintendo Switch Online, here comes the GameCube games, I think that would be really nice. Because I can't picture them going for a process where they remaster all of their most well-known games, because they're going to save those resources to develop new ones for Switch. I imagine, especially after the coronavirus pandemic. And I think it would still be nice if they released it in some sort of Nintendo Switch Online format. Nick said, I have Luigi's Mansion 3DS and Dark Moon. I want to get Luigi's Mansion 3, though. I believe that's on Switch. Do you have a Switch, Nick? Nick said, Kirby Air Ride on Switch, please. Yeah, or at least a Kirby Air Ride sequel of some sort. I know in terms of other videos I could make, I know I heard the news that Wonder Woman 1984 I think is going to be coming to HBO. Not to get off topic, but since I cover multiple topics on my channel, maybe that could be a video that I do later this week. I'm spending most of my time working on the these Nintendo live streams because I want to research things like maybe a bit of the history of the systems, which I'll have to do tonight with the original Wii. I still remember when I was introduced to the Wii back when it was called the Revolution. In Tips and Tricks magazine, they showed like a section talking about the Nintendo Revolution, and they brought out some demo units where there was like a Nintendo Revolution in like red and green and silver. It honestly took me a while to understand because I didn't get the appeal of what was then the Revolution at first. It wasn't until closer to the Wii's launch that I was like, oh my god, you could go like bowling and swing swords in Zelda and drive an Excite truck. I didn't really get that until later on, like closer to when the Wii came out. And then when the Wii was coming out, you know, I was like, I really want to get one, I want to get one, I want to get one. But it was selling out like crazy, so I had to wait until January 2007 to get a original Wii. And I remember I would have gone with my dad to get it. He got it at Circuit City. Do you remember that store? And he went out there by himself, got the voucher to get it, and he said he got the 13th Wii that was sold that day at Circuit City. NJPW Girl says, off topic, but tomorrow will be 10 years since Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 was released in theaters, which is still the only Harry Potter movie I haven't watched. Nick asked, do you have a PS4, Bobby? Which, yes, I do. It's mainly used by my sis, though. She plays a lot of, like Dark Souls. She's played, let me back up, she's played Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and I bought her Sekiro for PS4 on her birthday last year, and she's really looking forward to playing Demon's Souls on PS5, but like the original Wii, the PS5 is really difficult to find right now. Yeah. I guess the nice thing is, well, I mean, that's still like sad that the 3DS is being discontinued, but the one thing is that now that Nintendo is putting most of the resources into one system, it gives me room to pick up another console, because ever since the DS, basically what would happen is I would be able to get Nintendo's home console and their portable system. Well, now that they're just focusing on one, now it leaves room that I could get a second system. And I think my interest in third-party support, it was the kind of thing where as much as I really liked Nintendo games even into my teenage years, I was curious to see, what's it like to play a first-person shooter, or what's it like to play Ninja Gaiden? So that was why I was really supportive of the idea of Nintendo systems getting third-party games. And I hope it continues. Like, I know that I've played Doom 2016, Wolfenstein 2, and Mortal Kombat 11 for Switch. I recently just got Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Nick asked, did you know that they did a new firmware update for the 3DS recently? Which, no, I didn't know that. Actually, I might have, but I didn't really notice a difference. I think, was it one of those updates they released just to make sure the 3DS runs well? I know I could probably also do a video. I heard that my local PBS station is going to be airing. Let me double check that. I think they said it was both Charlie Brown Thanksgiving and a Charlie Brown Christmas. Yeah, but since I'm going to be busy doing research for the Wii stream, I won't be able to get to those videos until later this week, as well as the, I know that, there was a trailer released for the new Tom and Jerry movie. Let's see. And Nick said, yeah, I think it's just a security update. Yeah. Yeah, holy cow, they made that their cover photo. Yeah, so my local PBS station is going to be airing a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving and a Charlie Brown Christmas. I'm not sure if it applies to other PBS stations. If anybody watching lives outside of California, maybe you could let me know. Because so far, it is just one of the PBS stations I live near. Like, what if I type just PBS into my Facebook? Oh, it is PBS. If you go to their Facebook, they said at least for Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, they said they're going to team up with Apple TV. So I don't know. I like to think that it's the kind of thing where maybe PBS went to Apple and said, "Hey, people so really want Peanut specials on TV. Can we work out some sort of deal?" Which, I mean, that's not. I don't know if that's true, but I'm wondering if that's what went down. Excuse me. I think I forgot to mention this earlier on when I mentioned Animal Crossing. I heard the news that New Horizons was nominated for both Family Game of the Year and Game of the Year at the Game Awards, which I kind of predicted with how much people really like New Horizons that it was going to be nominated. I'm still kind of surprised because it didn't seem like the kind of game that would get nominated for that award. But still, like, it's still really good to hear. I think it has a shot at winning Family Game, although it has competition with Fall Guys, which I played Fall Guys. It's a pretty fun game. But I'm not really sure if it can win Game of the Year, though, because it has some really steep competition with games like Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. So we'll have to see how that goes at the Game Awards, which honestly, I don't really get super excited for award shows in general. Not that, I mean, people who work really hard on whether it's like movies that get nominated or video games and games, they deserve an award and recognition. Like, that part is very understanding and they deserve it. The only thing I don't like about award shows nowadays, especially in the age of social media, is the gossip. People getting into fights about things like this game should have won or this movie should have won this Oscar, and just yeah. It's just, for me, it's a very stressful day whenever there's an award show, whether it's the Game Awards or the Oscars. For me, it's just like I'll go to the Oscars Twitter account and see which movie won Best Picture or who won Best Director and all that kind of stuff. Or for the Game Awards, I do something similar. It's like, oh, who won in Game of the Year? Oh, Sekiro won Game of the Year, and all that kind of stuff. NGPW, or what do you mean by OMG? I thought I was the only one. Nick said, I don't want New Horizons to be Game of the Year, still a good game, but I think either Doom Eternal or Ghost of Tsushima should win Game of the Year, which I'm still waiting on Doom Eternal to come to the Switch. And funny thing, and this is theoretically speaking, this is an as-if example, if it wins Game of the Year, it would be kind of interesting if they released like a Game of the Year edition, and when the Switch version comes out, they could, justify it and say, hey, Doom Eternal won Game of the Year, and now it's coming to Switch. Which I still, I'm still going to pick it up regardless because I really liked what Panic Button Bethesda did with Doom on the Switch. It's still my favorite Switch game. And I actually have a ton of fun going back and playing the arcade mode and discovering, oh, you can do all these things with the weapons to take out down the demons. I think that's awesome. So, yeah, I think we'll just have to see, but I think New Horizons has some really steep competition. Have you played Doom Eternal and Ghost of Tsushima, Nick? I'm really curious about Ghost of Tsushima. On the surface, it looks like a game I would try, but what's holding me back, I'm just like, but is it Dark Souls hard? Because if it's Dark Souls, if it's as tough as like a Souls game, then I'm like, okay, my sis might like it, but I'll get my ass kicked. And GPW Girl says, people always get mad over their faves not winning. Yeah, and honestly, with things like that, basically, whenever it comes to like award shows, ultimately, what matters most to me is like, if a movie that I really like gets nominated or something, then I would say, oh, that's really good. Or if it's a movie I didn't like, I just kind of respectfully say to myself, I'm sure the people work really hard, but, I agreed to disagree. Or it could even, like, work as a recommendation, like, sometimes. Like, I remember after Toy Story 4 won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars the year it came out, that was what got me into finally doing the review. And when Parasite won Best Picture last year, I mean, my friend was hyping it up, but I was like, okay, I'll go and watch it. I heard it's on Hulu now. So, yeah, Nick said, in 2017, I was so mad at that Breath of the Wild won Game of the Year, but now I understand. I mean, Breath of the Wild is a good game, but I'm not really good at Zelda games. I can't figure out the puzzles. I often have to have my sister hold my hand when it comes to Zelda. And Nick said, also, I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, but I want to play it. Wondering if they'll bring it to PlayStation now, because it's the kind of thing where it's like if it comes to PlayStation now, like when I get a PS5 digital edition, then I'll give it a try. I'm just concerned that if I have trouble with the game, then it's just gonna like sit it on my PS4, just like doing nothing. Then I'm just like, oh, that's too bad. I can't beat it. Nick said my pick for 2017 Game of the Year was Nier Automata. Oh, I see what you mean. Which I've played the beginning of Nier Automata, but then I got kind of stuck. Which is probably why these days I really should be utilizing things like online guides when it comes to games that I get stuck in. Yeah. And JP Douglas said, what I meant was they can't just throw temper tantrums when somebody doesn't win the awards. You don't see other celebs throwing a fit or being a sore loser. Yeah, and I just don't think, I just don't think it's really fair because, yeah, I mean, like, I could understand somebody being, like, upset. I mean, I've had times where I'm just like, oh, that movie, I would have preferred if that movie won this certain award. I just don't like how, like, combative social media can get. And for me, it's kind of like the Olympics, where it's like, I think that even if like an athlete like doesn't get the gold medal, they still like ultimately like respect each other and things like that. I don't like it when people get very trollish and mean on social media and things. Hmm. Yeah, to lighten the mood, I'm kind of. I said this early on Twitter, but I think it would be kind of funny if Isabelle presented one of the awards at the Game Awards. Words. And JBW Girl said, "Don't get me started with football fans. I'll take your award for it." Because again, it's not that because like for me, it's not that like oh anybody that plays football acts like that. Like I myself, I used to enjoy going to like football games at my high school. It's just the people who overreact if their favorite team loses. That's the part that's really irritating to deal with. But as I was saying, maybe Isabel could announce one of the nominees at the Game Awards. Like, I could just, I think it would be really funny if the Game Awards did a thing where it's like they were going to announce, let's say, Best Action in Game or something, and they bring up Isabel, and they do the thing where Isabel like sits at her desk in the town's hall, like in New Horizons, and she's like, "Hi, everybody, this is and I am here to announce like the Best Action game." And that kind of thing. And Nick said, Isabel presenting some of the awards at the Game Awards would be so cute. Yeah, I honestly think that would be awesome. Wondering if it's possible to do a thing where people dress up the Animal Crossing New Horizons characters like their characters from the different like they're from the games that got nominated. So one character looks like I think his name is Joel in Last of Us 2. Another character looks like the lead in Ghost of Tsushima. Somebody looks like Cloud and that kind of thing. And GPW Girl says, my favorite moments from the Game Awards is when Kratos' voice actor said, "Read it, boy." I haven't seen that. I'll have to look it up after this stream. But yeah, like to kind of sound like Dr. Evil for a second, and $1 million. I'm just kind of thinking, I have one simple request, and that is to have Isabel announce the winners of a category at the Game Awards. And honestly, that's like the one thing that like I really, really want at the Game Awards, because I think that would be really funny if they did that. Okay, so I think I'll end things off here. Had a good time discussing the Wii U and GameCube with you all in the chat. So thank you for showing up. I'll be doing another stream tomorrow on the original Wii. I'm gonna spend tonight doing some research on the original Wii overall. Despite any shortcomings the GameCube and Wii U have, I still really enjoy them as systems. The Wii U has a good share of games, and the GameCube was for me the system that got me interested in playing video games. So so NJPW Girl, it was nice hearing from you, and thank you again for the video you sent me. Nick, I'll see you later, and I'm hoping that you will all join me tomorrow for discussing the original Wii. I have some really good memories with that system. So until tomorrow, this has been Bloodboom Bobby. The Wii stream will be tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, take care, and I'll see you later.